Hey there, and welcome to Money and You. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. My search for more fulfilling work led me to career and business coaching, where I stumbled upon a game-changing discovery. Money issues often start with our mindset and habits. You see, our relationship with money is the key to overcoming those frustrating financial obstacles. As an entrepreneur, coach, and problem solver, I'm passionate about helping you create a great relationship with money. Because, turns out, that's the foundation for a limit-free life. Each week on Money and You, I speak with amazing guests about all things money, mindset, practical tips, and everything in between. We're here to give you new insights, education, and empowerment so money can be one of your favorite relationships. So join us for some lively conversations and let's transform your financial life together. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Money and You podcast. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host, and very excited to be here. We're going to switch gears just a tad in the next couple of shows. We're going back to my origins. We're going to go back to some career discussions, and we're going to get into some conversations, some great conversations about finding, your best work and learning how to find those jobs that you really want and build a career. So it's fitting, I think. People are all over the place right now in terms of their outlook on employment. And so I thought it would be great to bring a couple experts in who are going to talk about very different things, but all within the realm of that particular topic area. So I think it's really needed right now. Things have really changed too. I look back now, almost laughing about when I started career coaching, how different it was 15 years ago to today. So much has changed. And even then I used to tell people, I would get people, clients who had, LinkedIn wasn't around when they got started. And so, but it's progressed in so many different ways. And some of the old things still really matter. And then there's some great new tools and ways to achieve your goals in terms of your career and your job search. So without further ado, I have a terrific guest that I'm really excited to talk to. And his name is Ramon Santillan, and he is the founder of PersuasiveInterview.com. Before he was an interview coach, he was a tax consultant for the world's biggest accounting firm, the world's biggest oil driller, and the founder of his own tax practice. Ramon teaches his clients how to be more charismatic, feel and look more confident, shows them the right way to brag about themselves during interviews, and turn interviews into job offers. He's been quoted by U.S. News and World Report, CBS, Yahoo, CareerBuilder.com, Chicago Tribune, and many others as an interviewing expert. His clients think he's pretty great, and he tends to agree. I love that. That's confidence. Ramon, welcome.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy you're here. And it was funny. I didn't plan this, but I happen to have this week's show and next week's with people who are really well versed in career, the career world and career transition and finding those jobs that you want. And you're both quite different in who you serve. So tell me a little just about background, going from being a tax person to being doing what you're doing now with interviews and interview prep.
Yeah, so my background is in accounting. I've always wanted to be an accountant. I went to University of Texas at Austin, which at the time was the number one accounting program in the country because I wanted to be an accountant. One thing I did learn when I became an accountant or when I was in school for accounting is that it wasn't the most technical person that got the job. It wasn't the one with the highest grades. It was the person who presented themselves the best during interviews. For me, I'm very much an introvert. And when I was in college, I'm a first generation college student, and I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any related work experience. I wasn't outgoing, and I didn't have the best grades. Yet somehow I always got the job over people who maybe were on paper better qualified, better suited for the role. And I realized the reason I did that was because I was better prepared, plain and simple. You were mentioning about LinkedIn, how back then it didn't exist. So this is 25 years ago when I was in college, and LinkedIn wasn't even around. Websites were barely becoming a thing. And what I would do is I would go to the library, get magazines on these companies I was interested in, get the Wall Street Journal, and I would read and I would kind of poke around. And that helped me prepare for those interviews that I always did really, really well. So from there, I was helping, obviously my friends and then friends of friends and then acquaintances. At some point, strangers started calling me for help with their interviews and their resumes. And at some points, I decided to make a business out of it because actually the point was I was recently married and I had a newborn daughter. And all these people were calling me to help them with their resumes. And I didn't have time to help them because I want to spend time with my wife and the daughter. And I said, you know what? I don't want to say no, but maybe if I put a price tag on me, people will go away by themselves because they'll say, oh, I thought this was free. Again, for years I was doing this for free. And I said $25. I think $25 would be a good thing. So people call me and say, hey, can you help me? And I said, sure, I would love to, but it's going to be $25. And they would say, oh, well, I thought it was free. Never mind. Thank you. I was like, okay, thank you. I didn't say no. They said no themselves. Like, okay, good. And that worked really well for 3 months. And then at month 3, someone called me, hey, I need help with my resume. I said, yeah, $25. And they said, sure, let's do it. So that's when I officially became an interview coach, when someone paid me the $25. Obviously, since then, my rates have gone up. But, that's how actually the business got started. I didn't mean it to be a business. It just became a business by itself.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. And that's happened to a couple of people I know who were accountants too, who just sort of fell into something else and it just took off. So, I was an accountant as well, and I got into career coaching for similar reasons. But my area that I was really interested in was we worked as teams and we'd go off and do audits or projects and consulting projects. And half the time people were talking about what they were going to do next and what they really wanted to be doing, which wasn't this, but this was like the part. And I just found it fascinating, just how many people were really looking for something else. And I thought, wow, and I was too. And so it just became kind of a fascination of mine as to how we choose our career and in what makes the most sense for us and what makes us most happy, but also, works the best for us with our talents and our skills. So, I think it's a really interesting area. I'm still fascinated by why and how people choose to do what they want to do. And I think what you're doing is so important because we can figure out what it is that we want to do, but that path, there's a gap there between what we're doing now and what we want to do. And somebody like you can come in and really kind of pave the way to figure out what the jobs are and how to get there. And that was always a bit of a piece, that stops people because they don't know how to do that. But a career coach or, somebody like you is going to be able to help see if that way can be created for them and then give them the right tools.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention to you is that I actually struggled a lot in this path that I've taken since then. So, like I mentioned, when I was in high school, I wanted to be an accountant and I worked really hard so I can get into the #1 accounting program in the country. So from 18 to 22, 23, I was focused on being an accountant. I got a job at, PwC, the largest accounting firm in the world. So I was like, okay, I'm here. At some points, I realized that that's not what I wanted to do anymore. But so I struggled a lot with that because I was thinking, did I waste my time? Did I make a mistake? Because like I mentioned, I'm a first generation college student. I paid my way through college. My parents didn't help me out. I worked 2 jobs through college to pay for school. And so at, 28, 29, 30, I was like, did I waste the last basically 10 years focusing on this goal that I don't want to do anymore? And I struggled a lot with that because I didn't know, maybe I should have done something else. Should I have had a different major? And that's when I was kind of thinking about this career coaching thing. I read a book. You might have heard about it. It's pretty popular. It's called What Color is Your Parachute?
Of course.
And that helped me out, figure out that I didn't make a mistake. 18-year-old me wanted to be an accountant, and he took the steps necessary to be there, to get there. And he did. He reached his goal. 30-year-old me wanted to do a different thing. So 18-year-old me was not wrong. He did the right thing for what he wanted to do at that point. 30-year-old me wanted to do a different thing in his career, and he took that. I don't know. And so it's been 15 years since then. Maybe the next 15, I want to do something else. I don't know. But I allowed myself. I forgave my 18-year-old self. And then I realized I don't need to forgive that guy. That guy was right. He did what he thought was right. 30-year-old me wants to do something else. Let that guy do something else. And again, later on in my career, I want to change. I can. That's the beauty of the time, of the era that we live in. We can change a career path.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It is, I love kind of the philosophical part of all of this because you bring up a great point. And I know I started out, I didn't start in accounting. I didn't want to be an accountant. I didn't even know what an accountant was. I got a criminal justice degree and I was actually doing some white collar crime investigative work with the Attorney General's office and as an internship. And I learned, they basically told me, if you like this at all, you need to do some accounting so you can understand the numbers behind all of this. And so I sort of fell into it in a very odd way. And originally I think I wanted to be a psychologist when I was 18. So there are a lot of mind games we play when we try to pursue our interests. And so I think that's why a lot of people don't, because there's so much of the outside world and your inner world telling you, this is a mistake. You've already invested all this time. You can't just change whenever you want. A career is built on all of this time. And I mean, I hear 25-year-olds saying, gosh, I don't really love what I do, but I'm too old to change. I mean, I'm so happy that you said that, because I think we should always be kind of feeling free to change. I mean, we do change. You aren't who you were at 18, and neither am I. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing because this world is more accustomed to people changing than our parents' world, which it was a giant no-no back then. And actually, another reason I went into career coaching was because my dad made a big shift when he was about 45 and changed his career. And it was a drama. I mean, the whole world thought it was the craziest thing that anybody could do. And it did have a big impact financially and every other way on our family. But then he built a second career that he loved. And, I think he lived to 94 because he had work that he loved for that whole second part of his life. I think it's a really important component for our health and everything else. So anyway, I think that's wonderful that you brought that up and that people kind of reconcile all these weird messages in their heads about change and what career they're in. We don't know until we try a career. That's the other thing. People, I'm sure this happens with your clients. People get very stressed about, what if I don't like it? I mean, what if I don't like this career path? What if I don't like this job I'm interviewing for? What happens then? I'm working so hard to get it. And then what if it doesn't work out? I mean, we can't actually, you can reassure them, with some of the data around it, but nobody knows until you get in there and start.
The majority of my clients are college students, and they are looking for a career path based on their major. So a lot of computer science, mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, that kind of stuff. So they are fairly sure that what they want to do. But yes, you're right. That fear comes in. It's like, well, what if I accept this job offer? Am I going to be stuck there forever? And then they kind of start spiraling. And I was telling them, like, look, just because you apply doesn't mean you're going to retire from that job. Right now, let's just apply to the job, get the interview, meet those people, have the second round interview, third round interview, get an offer, and then you can make a decision you want to work there or not. Once you start working there, you can leave. And I was telling them, like, look, and I said, well, what if I leave in a year? Like, look, this is a business you're running now, a business of you. A company can fire you on day one just because they want to. Most companies in the country here, I think probably even in the world, they're at will. So they can just fire you just because. Not because you did anything wrong, not because they hate you, not because they're doing bad. That's just how it is. So if a company can fire you on day one, you can also quit on day one. I don't suggest they quit on day one either. But that's what I'm telling them. Like, look, like you're not going to be married to these people now for the rest of your life. Apply for the job. And that's one step at a time. There's a lot of steps between you applying and you actually starting working there. Yeah. So let's start with that and work our way there. If at some point you don't like the company or whatever, you can always turn down the offer or reject the interview and continue your path. But you don't have to be dead set and like, well, this is going to happen if I apply. No, Probably not allow that stuff going to happen at all. Let's just wait one step at a time. We'll
Yeah.
cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, I love that. And I know, your students are telling you that or your graduates, but I'm also hearing it from, people in their 40s and 50s who are, they get an interview and then they immediately start thinking of all the things that, might be problematic if they get this job. Well, they haven't even had their first interview and they're worrying about, how bad it could be. So yeah, it's interesting where our brains go. We race ahead and worry about things that are not worth worrying about at that stage. But I don't know if you agree with this, but talking to young people, I sort of feel like whatever you do in your 20s is pretty valuable for the future, even if it has nothing to do with, your future career. I mean, these jobs, I worked for great companies in accounting, and I'm very, very happy I have them on my resume because it opened doors for me to do other things. But, I didn't stay forever and I don't even do that work anymore. But I'm still really glad I had the experience. Sometimes as an entrepreneur too, I feel, and maybe this is just because it was my own path, but I really am happy that I had the corporate experience that I had just for learning purposes. It helped me to be, I think, a better business owner.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I always tell my clients, a lot of these kids, I call them kids because they're half my age, but, they're 22, 23, 24. And they tell me, well, I've worked at a lifeguard and I'm trying to get an aerospace engineering job. I shouldn't even put the lifeguard on my resume. I'm like, no, you should put it because there's a lot of things that you show that by putting that job on there. First of all, you know what a job means. A lot of times, people don't know what a job means. What does a job mean? A job means you show up at a certain time. There's a certain dress code you follow. There's certain team work that you have to do. If you don't leave just because you leave, you leave when the work's done. You talk to your boss. That's what a job means. A lot of companies, especially for entry-level positions, they don't want to spend money trying to teach someone, a college student, what a job means. Mm-hmm. If you had a job before, they say, hey, this guy, this girl, they know that they're supposed to show up on time. There's a certain dress code, all these things that a job means. So that I don't have to waste my time trying to teach this kid what a job means. They can already hit the ground running. I can show them how to use the software, how to take measurements, whatever it is that we do here. But at least I don't have to show the kid, hey, you can't show up at 10:30 with your Starbucks and say, hey, why is everyone already going to lunch? That's not what a job means. So I tell them, like, let's work on that. Put that on your resume. That's the first thing. Second thing, like a lifeguard. I remember I did a seminar one time at Rochester Institute of Technology College, RIT. And someone said, I'm a lifeguard, but that's nothing to do with my job that I want to do. I can't remember the guy's major, but I said, tell me about your job. What did you do? Well, I sat on a little tall chair, kept an eye on the kids at the pool. I said, did you tell people not to run, that kind of stuff? Yeah. Did you ever save someone? And he's like, yeah, actually, I saved 2 people. I was like, well, tell me about one of the times. He's like, well, a little girl was drowning. There was a big party. They lost track of the little girl. And luckily, I noticed that she went underwater. I pulled her out, gave her CPR. Just like in the movies, the water started coming out. And, I saved her and she was alive. And I said, okay. So he's like, but it's not a big deal. And I was like, okay, hold on. So you're telling me, in other words, that you saved someone's life. You kept someone from dying. It's like, yeah. Okay. What does that teach? What does that show that you can act under pressure? Okay. You are responsible. And I said, what did you do after that? Did you start crying? Did you go home? He's like, no, I continued my shift. Like, it was like 2 more hours before the next guy showed up. And I said, yeah, and you're committed to the job. So those are things that you can tell the story during the interview when you're doing for aerospace engineering, whatever your major is. It's like, yeah, I don't have experience in this, but guess what? Tell me a time when you worked under pressure. I got one example. There was a time I saved a little 2-year-old girl from drowning. And let me tell you through that, right? What better example than that? And it doesn't have to be that dramatic. It could be anything else. Like, well, the time when I was flipping fries or, flipping burgers and the fry guy didn't show up. So I did burgers and I did fries. So I was able to do both. We got the lunch rush in, but we got everything out on time. People were happy, and my boss was super excited that nothing fell behind and no one got angry at him because we messed up an order. That's another great example, even though it's not as dramatic as the first one, but that's a good way to explain to people, hey, I've done this. I can act under pressure, or I'm committed, whatever it is, right? There's always stories there. So I always recommend students, like, obviously get an internship related to your major, but if you can't do that, get a job somewhere, any job. It doesn't matter what it is. Just get a job.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, job skills, like you said, I had a recruiter friend of mine say that everybody should work in a restaurant or a retail store at some point, because the fact that you were able to do the things that you said, show up on time, work for kind of not great people necessarily, usually the managers aren't the best in those environments. All of these are just the most basic of job skills, but they're so necessary. And you're right. Employers want to know that somebody's already crossed that bridge, and knows what it's about and doesn't have like a fantasy idea of, some of these things like showing up on time. And I love that you brought up so many things. There's so much psychology around this, really, as we're talking, which I love. The fact that we dismiss things that we've done that are actually important. And I think the only way for people to see that is for somebody like yourself to sort of interview them about it and get to, because they don't have, none of us really know the right questions to ask ourselves. But if somebody like you comes in and asks them these kinds of questions, suddenly they have a whole new realization that their experiences that they've been thinking are silly and unimportant are actually contributing to, some of the skills that they're going to have that they can translate into whatever job they go in. So it's really important, especially for younger people. They really don't see that, and they do try to hide. There seems to be this idea. My son and I have had this conversation because he went to fashion school and now he's doing computer science. And so he wants to kind of not mention the fashion part. And that has itself so many things, creativity and all kinds of things that would not only contribute in the future, but differentiate him. I mean, the entire world is a computer science major right now, and they all have good grades. They all have a lot of things. So how do you differentiate yourself from somebody else?
Yeah. What I tell my clients is, we don't want to compete. Yeah. Because if you compete, there's a chance you're going to lose. Yeah. What you want to do is outsmart. And I was like, okay, so because if you say, well, I have a 4.0, like, well, there's going to be someone else with a 4.0 plus, or well, I have this major, well, someone's going to come with 2 majors, or I have an internship, someone's going to have 3 internships, right? So you shouldn't compete. You're always going to lose because someone's always taller, smarter, richer, whatever, right? I tell them, outsmart. So how are you going to outsmart these people? And that's one of those things in the background that most people dismiss about themselves come into play. It's like that, like the fashion industry is like, yeah, there's a lot of creativity. So yeah, this guy has a major in computer science and maybe even better code than I do, but I can bring talents from this field that no one else has, because who's going to mix fashion with, computer science? One person is, and that's the only one you've got. So might as well go heavy on that. And I always tell them, like, there's something there. We just need to develop the story. And I always encourage them, like, that exercise. Yeah, like you said, I help them through this exercise. But if you want to do this at home, I say, okay, think about what's the challenge you face at your job, at your last job, or whatever jobs you're talking about. Think about that first, and think about what happened. What did you do? What ended up happening? And the second thing I would say, think about what is something you were proud of from that job. It doesn't have to be like, well, I saved the company from going bankrupt. It can be as simple as like, well, there was one time when there was a big lunch rush, and no one else showed up except for me and the cashier, and we took care of the whole thing. And I was very happy because I was able to. I never did fries before until that time, but I always kept an eye on the fry guy and see how he did his job. So I kind of remembered, and I put the fries, and they came up perfect. And some guy even said, "Hey, those are the best fries we've ever had from here." And that's the story. And develop the story. How can you put out there? Sit down, think about it. Think about a challenge you faced and something you're very proud of from that particular job.
Yeah, that's great. And this idea of storytelling is crucial. I don't know if it was back in my day, but these days it's really important to, everybody's got their sort of little bullets, with their achievements and their successes, but to create a little story out of that versus just a statement that, oh, I'm very good at whatever. It's much better to weave together a story that sticks in somebody's mind where a statement will be forgotten. So I love that you're talking about that. Is that one of the key things that you help people do in terms of interviewing?
Yeah, because a lot of times people, what they focus on during an interview, they want to have an interview. And I say, forget about interviews. Let your competition have interviews. Mm-hmm. What you want to have is a conversation. So what is a conversation? It's a back and forth. You ask me something, I answer it, but then I ask you back something back. And I give you some other information that I give you, makes you come up even better questions for me, about me, not just the questions that HR told you to ask on the little form. So if you are engaging, entertaining, and or educating, mm-hmm. and if you can do all three at the same time when you're answering questions, you're going to get that job. Oof. Why? Mm-hmm. I'll repeat it again. If you're educating, entertaining, and or engaging, that's a perfect interview answer right there. You can speak as long as you want to, as long as you're doing all three. If you're doing all three at the same time, even better. Why? Because people hire people they like. The most technical person doesn't get the job. The most qualified person doesn't get the job. They hire the person they like the best. And that's what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to be the person they like the best. How do you do that? By having a conversation. Again, I'm going in a circular argument now. Have a conversation. How do you have a conversation? By asking questions too. This isn't a test. A lot of times, again, my students, they think, well, I need to have my perfect answer for the test, for my interview. It's like, no, an interview is not a test. Any answer can be the right answer. You just have to present it the right way. No one's ever going to say, tell me your biggest weakness. My biggest weakness is my time management. Wrong. The answer we're looking for was, this other one. That's never going to happen, right? There's not one right answer. All the answers can be the right answers. You just have to present it the right way.
Oh, this is so good. I could literally talk about this all day. I find this so fascinating. We can't, so I want to hone in on some of the really important things here. What are you seeing with kids who are getting to a stage where maybe they've sent a lot of resumes out, not much is happening, and they're starting to feel a little defeated? How do you address all of that?
I tell them, see where are you getting stuck? A lot of times these students get interviews, but they don't get an offer. So I say, well, maybe where you're messing up is the interview. Maybe we have to focus on that. Sometimes they're seeing a lot of resumes and applications, but they're not getting interviews. I said, okay, well, maybe the application part itself is wrong. Maybe even the resume is wrong. Sometimes they're getting interviews, but no offers. And we realize that resume is what's the problem. They're getting interviews for the candidates on the resume, but then that resume doesn't match the candidate that shows up. So when the interviewer says, hey, well, I was looking for this person on paper, but the person that showed up is not this person. So there's something there. So what I tell them is like, let's see where we're messing up. And again, let's develop that story. Who are you? This isn't about memorizing the script either. This is about knowing yourself. Like if I ask you, what is your son's name? You don't sit down and memorize your son's name like, okay, John. Okay, John. No, you just know your son's name. Same thing if I ask him, what's your mom's name? Like he doesn't sit down like, what's my mom's name? No, you just know the story. So you develop the story. The time you save someone at the pool, the hamburger example, there's stories you have. You just have to sit down and develop them. So what I tell them is like, let's see where the problem is. And then also, a lot of times parents call me and they say, well, I told my daughter to reach out to people, but to go to like apply in person and like give them the resume, but they're not doing it because that's not what you do now. A lot of times students are telling me, well, I'm applying online. And I say, okay, like it's always like guys, everyone's right here. No one's wrong. You should apply online, but don't apply through the quick apply on LinkedIn. Do an actual application, go to the company's website and apply through that job there. But also, your parents are right. Maybe you should go talk to someone. You don't have to talk to them in person, maybe. Maybe you can reach out to them on LinkedIn. And I always tell people, LinkedIn is for connecting with people. It's not for applying for jobs. If you want to apply to a job, go to the company's website, apply to a job there. If you want to connect with people, go to LinkedIn. Talk to those people. Again, you're trying to talk to people because those people are experts at what they do. They're experts at being an accountant, at being an aerospace engineer. So try to find the people that work at the companies you're interested in, talk to them, and see, maybe they'll give you some insights about the company and the interview process. Let's say I don't care about an interview process or whatever. Okay, fine. The reason you should be reaching out to people is because you need to start building your networking muscle. Especially for my clients, this is not the last job they're going to get. This is a co-op. This is an internship, maybe even the first job out of college. But guess what? In 2 to 3 years, you're probably going to get another job, or you're going to need to get another job because you're going to get laid off, or whatever, right? Or you maybe want to get a promotion, whatever it is. You don't want to start looking for connections 3 years from now when you need a job next week. Yeah. If you start building that networking muscle, it's like any other muscle. If I'm going to be in a bodybuilding competition, I don't lift weights the morning of, right? I start 3 years before lifting weights, eating right, getting ready for the competition. So I always tell them, start building that networking muscle, talking to people, feel comfortable. From there, we can take it to having a video call, a phone call, even an in-person meeting, a networking event. You can build your way up there. But there's a lot of aspects of the job search. It's not just, let me apply more. I've had people that tell me, students, they're 22, and they said, I think the record was 570 applications in one semester. And they didn't get a single interview. And I said, okay, here's the problem. I said, well, he went to career services, and career services said, you got to apply more. It's you're just not applying enough jobs. And I said, okay, here's the problem. You're 22. At that time, I think it was 43 or 42. I was like, for easy math, let's just pretend I'm twice your age, right? You're 22 times 2, 44. You say you applied to 570 jobs this semester. I'm twice your age. I haven't applied to 100 jobs in my life. I said, there's a problem with your application process. Your resume is off, something's off. So applying more is not the solution. We have to take a step back and figure out, what are we doing wrong here? Or maybe what are we not doing right? A lot of times it's just you're not applying to the right jobs. You're doing the quick apply, which again, I tell people, don't do that. You're just wasting your time. You feel like you're applying to jobs. So when your mom asks you, how many jobs did you apply today? It's 50. Your mom's real happy, but you're just kind of throwing resumes into the void. That's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah. And sometimes when people start getting a little, worried and a little desperate feeling, they will apply to a lot of jobs that aren't even aligned with what they do. They're just I got to get a job, so they start applying to everything. And then that feels like effort, but it's wasted effort. And then that really makes you feel, even more defeated. But it's like you said, it's a waste of time. But we don't know that because we live in this online world and we're like, oh, wow, everybody says apply online. But applying online is, of course, you have to do it. But I feel like there's all this other things that have to supplement it. I mean, you do need to get on LinkedIn and see if you can connect with other people at the company, or, there's multiple layers to all of this. And I still find, especially with the older folks, networking is everything. I mean, I don't know what the stats are now, but it used to be 80% of jobs are, there's some networking because there's some connection with a person that helped them to get that job. And I see it all the time. I recently saw somebody get a great job that she wanted, that she applied to a year ago, and she didn't get it. And then the same job came up again at a different location, and she applied. But, I said, go back and talk to the person who you liked a lot, who you interviewed with last year. And sure enough, she got it this time. But I think it was as much connecting back with him as anything else.
Yes.
So, and it's hard for you. I understand it's hard for young people, especially the face-to-face kind of stuff, to do this networking. But
it has to be done. And I think a lot of times people, students especially, think when they hear networking and you're going to get a job through a connection, they feel that means you need to make best friends with one guy or one girl and they're going to help you find a job. Like, no, this is, I don't want to say it's transactional because you do have to build a relationship, but also it don't have to be your best friend, your like BFF or anything like that. It's talking to people, getting to know them, see what they do at their company. And a lot of times they'll give you insights. You know, I've had many times where clients, we find the right person to connect with at a company and they'll say, hey, yeah, I know we have a job posting, but we already know who they're going to hire. So feel free to apply, but you're probably not going to get it. And guess what? That saves us some time because we know we're not going to get it. Or they'll tell us again, hey, there's a hiring freeze. They're not really hiring anyone for that role. Mm-hmm. Feel free to apply, but I don't think it's going to happen. Sometimes they'll even tell you, hey, make sure you review this material or this topic or coding because they're going to ask you about that during the interview because I went through the same interview. Or they'll say, hey, send me your resume. I'm going to give you some feedback on it. And then after that, you can apply. I mean, there's a lot of insights that we can get from connecting with people. And we don't have to, a lot of times people say, well, I need to connect with 1,000 people. It's like, obviously the more the better, but that's not the point. It's not about how many people we're connecting with. We want to find the people who want to help. Some people will ignore your connection request.
Right.
Some people will accept it, but they won't follow through. And then some people will accept it and send you some ideas and insights. Yeah. Those are the ones we want to find. And again, we don't need everyone. We just need those people who want to help and give us some insights so that we can move forward and see where we need to improve on, what we're doing well, and maybe even get the job. Maybe I had so many times where they'll say, let's have a Zoom call. Just a random person we're connected with. Yeah. They'll have a Zoom call and they'll say, hey, that went great. Do you mind if we have another call, but this time my boss is going to be on it? Is that cool with you? They'll say, sure. We get ready for that call. Yeah. And at the end of that second call, they'll say, hey, we've got a spot open. Would you like to join the team? Yeah. And what's super crazy is like they will fill out the job application the day they're filling out their payroll information. Because they'll say like, well, you never actually applied for this job. But by the way, can you apply for the job? After you give us your routing information for your paycheck, can you fill out the application? It's so crazy, but it happens all the time. Why? And it's because of those connections. Again, they're not like the best friends ever. There's just a connection you made and they want to help,
Oh, I'm just loving this. So I don't want to run out of time before we talk a little about a specialty area that you help people in, which is folks on the spectrum. So can you tell us a little about that? And
yeah, so I've been doing my interview practice for the last 15 years professionally. I work with a lot of CFOs, C-level executives, CFOs, vice presidents, those kind of people. And at some point, a mom called me and she needed help with her college students, and I helped them. We got great results. And, I started helping more students. At some point later on, another mom called me and say, hey, my college student needs a job, but he needs help because he's on the spectrum. Are you familiar with that? I'm saying, well, I've heard of autism, but I'm not sure what it is. And she explained to me what it was. Basically, some people on the spectrum, high functioning autism, Asperger's, so different terms depending on who you're talking to. They struggle with interviews because they don't read body language the way neurotypicals do.
Right.
Maybe they take things too literally sometimes. And sometimes they just don't know exactly how to present themselves during an interview. They get, like most of us, we get shy and nervous during the interview. So I said, sure, I'll help them. And then within 30 days, he had like 2 or 3 job offers, great job offers at great companies. And his mom called me back crying and saying like, wow, like, I was hoping he could he was a computer science major. And she said, I was just hoping a job at a computer repair shop where he could just, get his credit for his co-op so he could graduate. Right. But you gave him a career. And this wasn't through some hiring initiative, right? This was just through a regular old job that all the other kids applied to. And he beat them for that job. And she said, what was the secret? Well, the secret was that most times when people prepare for interviews, they don't really prepare. They just kind of go over their notes. Yeah. And when someone teaches you how to prepare for an interview, they just kind of tell you, like, have a firm handshake and smile. And it's like, well, what does that mean? What I do is I teach the what and the why, which most people don't. And I do that because that's how I train my executives, my CFOs, my VPs. This isn't like have a firm handshake. Those guys and girls, they know what a firm handshake is, but sometimes they need to know and get that feedback of, okay, is this firm handshake firm enough, or is it too firm, or the smile, or I need to point out the things they need to work on. And when I explain the why to the college students, I can see in their eyes like there's like, now I know the rules. Everyone's been playing this game around me, and I never understood why I have to do a firm handshake. It just keeps on telling me, do a firm handshake, or what a good resume looks like, or what a good interview question is like. Not the one you get asked, but the one I want to ask. No one's ever told me that. And when I explain to them the why and the how, that really helps them out. And the results are right there. The proof is in the pudding. They get these awesome jobs, awesome careers. And I get the calls from the mom crying and telling me, you allowing me to have dreams I never allowed myself. My worry was, what is he going to do when I'm gone? Because they told me he couldn't walk when he was little, that he couldn't talk, that he couldn't go to regular school, that he wouldn't go graduate high school, that he couldn't go to college. And then people told me he's not going to be able to get a normal job. And now you've proven them wrong. Like, he has a career now. Now he can support himself. He can get a promotion. He can get a raise. He has a 401k. He has benefits. He might even be able to support a family one day. Now I can think of, maybe I'll have grandkids. And they'll tell me that's a dream I never allowed myself to have, because I was so worried about what is going to happen to him when I'm gone. Now I don't have to worry about that. He has a job at Google, at Facebook. He makes more money than we do, right? So that's, to me, then I focus my shift from, or my shift from focus from executives to working with people who are neurodivergent. Because to me, that's helping some executive earn $100,000 more with a more fancy title. It's fun. It's exciting for me. But helping a college student who, again, someone 15, 20 years ago told his mom, yeah, this kid's not going to be able to talk ever. So just put him somewhere, put him in a home or something, to helping that kid get a job at a name brand company like Amazon, Facebook, Google, Blue Origin, you name it, NASA.
Yeah.
That to me is very rewarding. So again, helping a kid get to where everyone said to him and to his mom, just write him off. He's not going to do anything. And now he's working at NASA. He's doing policy for the White House on AI. To me, that's very rewarding. I know there's, I don't want to get positive, but there's talk out there, people who said like, oh, these kids can't do anything because they're on the spectrum, blah, blah, blah. And so they can do it. They could probably do it better than we can. And I'm very happy that I'm helping these students get to where they want to be, instead of writing them off and say, well, just work some job, any job. No, these guys are prepared. They're college educated. They're well trained. They're very smart, and helping them get to where they want to be. And I guess even where people said they couldn't get, and proving people wrong, to me, that's a lot of fun and very rewarding. So I'm very happy to be part of that process.
Wow. Well, thank you. And that's beautiful work. And I agree with you. I mean, typically very smart individuals who just need a little help with the communication and everything else, but will do a great job at the job. So, well, Ramon, you kind of brought us full circle, because one of the greatest gifts, I think, in life is to have a purposeful, meaningful job that you can go to every day. So you're proving that out. I mean, you found something that brings you great fulfillment and joy. And that's what I think everybody should have. And certainly, and sometimes it's hard to get there, but I think your route to this, you probably wouldn't have predicted back when you were 20 years old, but here you are. So I think that's the other thing, is sometimes we have to trust and have a little faith that we just keep moving forward into what we like, and into what we're good at, we'll find ourselves in a pretty interesting place. So thank you so much. And can you let people know how to find you and how they can contact you?
Yeah, they can go to my website, persuasiveinterview.com, and they have a lot of articles that parents can read and their students can read to help them, with the job interview process. Yeah, they can also go to LinkedIn. You You can find me under my name, Ramon Santillan, or you go to linkedin.com/IN/interview coach. And again, you'll find some articles there that and success stories. Every Friday, I try to put what I call Offer Letter Friday. And I put a text or an email that I got from a student celebrating their job offer. Again, a lot of times, and I tell my students, like, look, get ready because when it happens quick. Sometimes it just takes a while, but when it happens, they'll get 2 or 3 offers the same day, the same week, and I would say, look, celebrate it because, again, in their minds, they're like, one day I'm going to get a job. And then they get a call like, hey, we have an offer for you. We'll send it to you in 5 minutes. Okay. And it's like, okay, well, where are the balloons? Where's like the slow clapping? Nothing like that happens. And I tell them like, look, enjoy it. Like, this is very exciting. Now, guess what? We're going to negotiate and you're going to get $10,000 more. And like, no, I can't do it. Like, yes, you can. Let me show you. And I said, okay, when everything's said and done, I said, look, do this. With your first paycheck, go take your parents, go get a hamburger, and you pay the bill, and they're going to be blown away because I mean they've helped you a lot. But yeah, I mean let's celebrate the achievements, and when it comes by, when it rains it pours. So, but you have to show up every day. You have to do it every day. You don't just build the muscle. It doesn't just show up. You have to show up, go to the gym, lift the weight. Sometimes it's going to suck. A lot of times it's going to suck. You're going to cry. It's going to sweat. It's going to hurt sometimes, but you will get there. You just have to show up every day.
Well, Ramon, this has been great, and you left it just at a point where we could have had another entire show on negotiating that salary. So I might be asking you to come back if you would not mind. But thank you so much for being here and sharing all this. There is, I know, a lot more that you could have shared, and a lot more I could have asked. So I hope people will get in touch with you and read your articles and get to know you, because I think you're a fantastic resource, and I'm so happy that you were on and that people can know you. So spread the word, and thank you. So audience, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show, and obviously there are many people that you could share this with, and I would certainly love for you to do that. And while you're at it, subscribe and rate and review the Money and You Show. And thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.